Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about cultural Marxism and speech, Facebook, MAGA equals terrorism, and COVID truth, numbers, and the economy. And I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth. America Can We Talk is sponsored by GC Works, a Dallas-based company performing advanced technology research in the oil and gas industry.
Hello again and welcome to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. I've been on this kick and I'm going to keep it up, folks. I want more of us on the conservative side, really all Americans, to be more alert to how our thoughts are, what we tolerate, what we think is okay to say and think, is constantly being manipulated. And it's not just that it's changing because America is changing. It is being manipulated by leftists who have truly begun and long down the path of trying to inspire Americans, encourage Americans, humiliate Americans, contort Americans into only saying and thinking the things the left has decided are okay to say, and only do the things left thinks is okay to do. There is just a profound need in this country for Americans to become re-enthused with the ideas of America, the idea that we have a country rooted in individual liberty, meaning what the Declaration said, that each of us have rights, we have equal rights, we have rights from God, simply because we're born, and that includes the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the entire construct of America's culture is supposed to be around this idea, this commitment to the freedom of the individual to live in freedom, and the structure of government is supposed to be there. The consent of the governed limits the government, and the idea of the government is to protect the individual. What we've had in our country over decades, but more recently, especially in the last 8 years under President Obama, a kind of more militarized left, a more militant left, a determined left, not just pushing socialist ideas like, government should control the healthcare system. You can't get healthcare unless the government says you can have the healthcare. And government-controlled businesses. You had a massive growth of the bureaucratic state in Washington in the 8 years of Obama, because the idea wasn't just, we need a tweak here and a tweak there. It was the presumption in America, a growing presumption that, of course, Washington, the federal government, really runs everything, and we just kind of let them do it. We had a growth in a normalizing of the concept of collectivism. And it spills over not just in the economy, but into what we understand we're permitted to say, write about, think, what people understand is acceptable to say in public conversation. The left, the determination of leftist Marxists in this country to turn us away from the core beauty of the freeing ideas of America's founding is present and real, and I think it helps to call it out. Now I want to turn and talk about this cultural Marxism idea, a specific example out of the state of Florida. So in the state of Florida, this is my first five for today, but in the state of Florida today, you had a student was removed from his position. He was formerly, he was a Catholic student. He was voted out of his position by other students. He was replaced as the student senate president. He was replaced because the former president, so let me get to this idea. So the kid who was president, named Jack Denton, formerly president of the student senate at FSU, Florida State University, was removed by student vote because in a meeting of the Catholic organization on that campus, Florida State University has a Catholic group. In speaking to that Catholic group, he told them that you cannot be consistent with the values and tenets of the Catholic faith and also support Black Lives Matter because, as he points out, Black Lives Matter supports the transgender agenda. Black Lives Matter supports abortion. And he's just telling them you can't support Black Lives Matter and also be true to your Catholic faith. This was his sin that the students of the Florida State University who voted in the student senate race, they voted him out of office because he spoke in an intolerant manner about transgender students and about abortion, intolerant of women's rights, intolerant of the transgender agenda. So they voted to remove him. These are comments he made in a group chat of Catholic students, warning them that supporting Black Lives Matter and actually the ACLU effectively supports causes that are not in line with traditional Catholic doctrine. So in a phone call with Catholic students who apparently, allegedly are on the same page as he's not allowed to say that actually these ideas, transgenderism and abortion, are inconsistent with the Catholic faith. He didn't call people names. He didn't say they should be kicked out of school. He didn't say they should be arrested. He didn't say anything bad about them. He's talking to his fellow Catholic students about the idea, if you embrace the Catholic doctrine, these ideas are inconsistent, and therefore the Black Lives Matter and ACLU organizations are also inconsistent with Catholic doctrine. This got him removed. Not just like, it wasn't the school that clamped down on him, although they might have also, I don't know, but his fellow students. These students are so indoctrinated with what the left has been trying to do to this country for decades that they could not agree that a Catholic student could speak truth about Catholic doctrine to fellow Catholic students without being removed as a student Senate president. At least as far as the stories go. There is no mention of him, for example, saying that people of various other faiths, other beliefs, people who support Black Lives Matter, people who support abortion rights, there's no coverage, no argument that he was claiming that those students couldn't be part of Student Senate. He wasn't excluding anyone. He wasn't mocking anyone. He's just talking about his faith. But I want you to think about how radically successful the left in this country has been in indoctrinating America. So you got a majority of students at Florida State University to say this kid's got to go. He's not allowed to think that. He's not allowed to believe in his own faith. He's not allowed to believe things and say out loud and in a group chat things that are consistent with his faith. He's not allowed. So he got removed, and actually they're really now in a bit of a pickle because the person who was elected in his place, in place of this Jack Denton, another student named Ahmed Duraldik, who is Arab and Muslim, has been already criticized. One person dared to peep and say, hey, wait a minute, this guy, the new student Senate president, he's actually put anti-Semitic things on his social media. So are we okay having someone who's anti-Semitic be the head of the Student Senate at Florida State University? I don't know where that's going to end up, but I'll wager a guess. I'm going to tell you that the political correctness, and that's not even a strong enough term, the radical Marxist indoctrination of our society carried out by media, by academia, by Hollywood, by just the entire political conversation in this country, I'm going to guess if this gets put to a vote, if the students at Florida State University are permitted, there's some call to remove this guy who's put anti-Semitic things, who's Muslim and has put anti-Semitic things on his social media, I'm going to guess the students will be fine with that. Because you see, in the world of political correctness, you're allowed, if you're a Muslim, you pretty much aren't allowed to be criticized. And I'm going to guess that there will be a huge backlash if anyone tries to remove the new student president on the grounds that he actually put anti-Semitic things in his social media. And the backlash will be, you are being Islamophobic. You aren't allowed, you can't go after a Muslim student. He's allowed to say what he thinks. His faith may be driving him to say those anti-Semitic things. I don't know what the Florida State University students will do with this new problem, this new issue they have. But I will say it's extremely troubling in this country that and I'm calling it cultural Marxism. It's not just economic Marxism, taking control of the means of production or controlling everything about industry from Washington, which is what we started doing under Obama. But what we have now is this growing normalization legitimization of the idea that the left-wing worldview will tell everyone else what you can say, what you can think, what you're not allowed to say, what you cannot think, what you cannot do, and it is becoming normalized. When you have the Florida State University, the student Senate president removed for saying things that are consistent with his Catholic faith, but he's not allowed to say those things because, after all, those things are inconsistent with the left-wing, Black Lives Matter, pro-abortion, ACLU truth. You've really got not government monitoring your conversation, monitoring culture. You have Americans, you have students, college students, monitoring, controlling, limiting each other. You have these, and I'm sure these kids who voted to remove this young Catholic student as president of the Student Senate, I'm sure they think they did the upright thing, the moral thing. They're standing up on high ground because they're not going to tolerate intolerance. But what they're doing is the most intolerant of all. They're saying they have no tolerance for beliefs based in Christian faith, which is, again, another great signal to understand. The left in this country, no tolerance for the notion of being rooted in faith and having your beliefs, your values, your ideas informed by your faith. The idea that this kid was speaking consistently with his Catholic understanding, his Catholic faith, had mattered not at all to the students willing to remove him. Traditional Catholicism, traditional religious beliefs not permitted to carry the day, not even permitted to be uttered out loud at Florida State University, and those students who voted that kid out thought they were doing something moral. We're in trouble, folks, in this country because we have so many people bought into the indoctrination, the Marxist left-wing indoctrination of our society. They don't even know that they've become the most intolerant ones. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five. Okay, I got to talk about, you've probably been saying this story about Facebook. So God bless Project Veritas, that group that just goes underground and, goes and does this investigating. They get into all sorts of organizations and they record what's really happening behind the scenes, things that the organizations would never admit publicly. So that group went ahead and the Project Veritas group got somebody inside Facebook to record conversations with people whose job it is to edit the content on Facebook, to decide what is permissible to say, what is not permissible to say. And it is so amazing, so illuminating. So have Matt the Wonderful play the clips of the Project Veritas inside Facebook talking to the people who decide your free speech.
It's simple. As you say, be brave. I am more brave than I am scared of any trouble that anybody could give me for breaking some stupid NDA. I think the truth is more powerful than any NDA. To stick up for the voice of the people.
Facebook, shadow bans. Yeah, Facebook's notorious for it, and they say they don't, but it's clear that people's content don't come out because it's been defiltered off the queue.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
If you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it. Right.
I don't give a I'll delete it.
You gotta do the Cheeto at all.
Zach McElroy came to Project Veritas because of what he saw at his job at Facebook in Tampa, Florida. He saw and filmed evidence of structural and cultural bias inside Facebook discriminating against Republicans and conservatives. McElroy's story raises serious doubts about the under-oath testimony of Facebook's CEO Mark Zuckerberg to Congress, where he claimed Facebook has no political bias. Steve Grimmett is a content moderator for Facebook in Austin, Texas.
It's a very progressive company who's very anti-MAGA.
I know that Facebook does have a Trump rule where they still allow him on the platform even though he says things that if anyone else said it.
And that's the fortunate thing is, even if he does say something, if it gets repeated, we can at least get the average Joe. But it goes back to our discussion earlier. It's hard when you've got the the top person in the country. That's his MO. But Facebook's done a lot better job of at least policing the mimickers and the mockingbirds that come after Trump.
I assume your coworkers were deleting a lot of Trump.
Nobody likes Trump on the Facebook side.
You don't leave any go, do you? Like, if you see a conservative post, you just get rid of it. Right.
I don't give no I'll delete it.
Good.
And they'll get salty. It's mostly
like even if it's not, even if it's in policy, like you're deleting that, right?
Yeah, I don't give no It's like 1 week left. What are they gonna do? Like,
right.
Send me to OIP? I don't give a
You told me that you just whack all the conservative posts and just gone, right?
Yeah. No, honestly, like every time, like half the time when I delete people for like pro-Trump, I'm like, you should be on a watch list, dude.
Yeah. Seriously.
Trump supporters like to throw around like Trump derangement syndrome as like, liberals being crazy. I like to think of it as actually you're the one that has Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, you're losing your goddamn mind as soon as, because they're just like, oh, Trump 2020.
Yeah.
And it's like, that sounds a little more deranged to me when you end every argument than that.
Like even like hashtag MAGA or hashtag MAGA 2020.
It's political, it stays up.
Yeah, but not for you.
No.
Deleted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she has a MAGA hat on or something. You'll delete all of them. Yeah. I would so do that though.
If someone wears the MAGA hat, I'm gonna delete it for terrorism.
Yeah. You just have to like go hard that day. It's just like get into work early.
Okay, people, in that clip, first of all, you can watch the entire clip. I just did a little portion there on our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows, drop down list of links. I put a link to that entire Project Veritas video. One of the comments was, if someone's wearing a MAGA hat, I'm going to delete them for terrorism. And these are the content moderators at Facebook. The people who decide, you put things up, or people say, oh, there's a great posting, you can't find it, or you go to posting and it's got the little label over it, it's gone. These are people who decide what actually stays up on Facebook. And these people, and today, my point in the story today is not to talk about what to do about it legally. I think it's a very complex issue. I think people are working on it in Congress. I think the great idea of having a competitor would be really good. But the reason I want to talk about the story today on this show is to talk about the impact of what I've been trying to talk about a lot over the last several days, which is this concept of Marxism, of just instead of a country based in freedom, the whole concept of Marxism is the premise, the beginning analysis of any issue, any right. In America, it's supposed to be the right of the individual to live in freedom. In Marxism, it is the government will control it and let you know how much freedom you have. So whether it's economic Marxism and owning the means of production, or regulating businesses to the point they're pretty much owned by the government anyway, that's one form of Marxism, economic. But there's cultural Marxism, educational Marxism, intellectual Marxism, political Marxism, the whole concept of changing the very foundational idea of America to what these people are doing. Because I go back to the thing I said a moment ago about the students at Florida State University who voted out the student senate president. They actually thought they were doing the right thing. They actually thought that. They thought they were the enlightened ones, and this guy has made a statement against Black Lives Matter. He has questioned Black Lives Matter. He has to go. And they think that's virtuous and self-righteous, and they are above the rubes who get duped into criticizing things like Black Lives Matter. They think they're the smart people. Here at Facebook, these people are telling you they are going to delete anything related to President Trump. If they can. They can't delete Trump, but if you are a mockingbird, to use the term that guy was just using, a mockingbird or mimicker, you repeat things Trump says, yeah, they're going to come after you, especially if you have a big following. So I encourage you to understand, when these people, in a very weird way, I mean, you can get angry at them and be disgusted. I do think, actually, there's a question if Mark Zuckerberg lied to Congress. That'd be great to find out. But this kind of thing comes out, and it really doesn't shock us. It shouldn't shock you or me. it validates, actually, it validates what we observe day after day after day in social media. That's just Facebook. But all over America, in the world of Google, the world of all of these social media giants, the standard operating assumption is whatever the left stands for is right, is superior, is correct. Whatever the right stands for, whatever conservatives stand for, is wrong, ignorant, closed-minded, evil, and bad. So they start with that premise, and then you layer in the existence of Donald Trump, who has driven the left mad from the moment he rode down that escalator and said, hey, I'm going to run for president, driven the left out of their mind. His success as a president, his success in winning the election was monumental and shocking. But on top of that, his success in actually getting things done in accordance with what he promised during the campaign drives the left crazy. He's actually pushing his agenda through with virtually no help, by the way, from the Republicans in Congress. I mean, very little help from the Republicans in Congress. Kind of breathtaking, actually, how very, very little help he gets from the Republicans, still getting things done. And what Donald Trump has really managed to do, even more so than particular agenda items, and he's done a lot of great things, got us out of the Iranian deal, got us out of the climate change foolishness, fixed our trade deals. And so we actually have trade arrangements with our allies and people, other countries in the world that meet our needs, that actually help our workers in America. Just fabulous changes put in place by President Trump, policy changes, but that's not even really why the left hates him so much. What they really hate is that he has begun to instill in Americans, again, the basic concept of the love of this country, the love of the ideas of America, the love of the idea of an America that where we live in freedom, the entire just resurgence of love of the concept of America, sovereignty, love of the idea of America first, taking care of our own citizens first, all of that. He is what the left hates more than anything else. It's not really his tweets. It's not really the rude remark they think is rude. It is because he's managed to instill love of America and to make it normalized, to make it popular, to make people proud to be patriotic, proud to love America. Because when Donald Trump says love of America and America first, he's talking about the America of the founding, the America of these fabulous ideas rooted in the Declaration of the Constitution, ideas that cannot live, cannot survive under the leftist mission that today's Democrat Party has. The radical left in this country, which has overtaken the Democrat Party, the radical left that wants to control everything from Washington, wants to shift everything away from the freedom of the individual over to a government-controlled society. The radical Marxist idea cannot abide the basic fundamental freedom on which America was founded. And this is why, more than anything else, why the left hates Donald Trump, because they have made loving America, again, a very popular, a very widely loved and embraced idea. It's made people think and question, why does the left trash America all the time? Why do Democrats hate America? Why do Democrats work so hard to undermine America in every avenue of American life? So, back to these people we were just watching, these people who were talking with you, we were listening to a little clip from Facebook. They don't know everything I just said. They don't really know any of what I just said. They just know, as they've gone through academia, they've gone through K through 12, through college, their workforce, the whole milieu of the American conversation about politics has been infected with leftist hate of America, leftist disdain for the idea of America, disdain for the values of America, disdain for everything Trump stands for. So these people we just heard talking, they were telling you from Facebook, from inside Facebook, how they try to delete everything about Trump. They think they're doing something right. They think they're standing up for better ideas, the ideas they've been taught. They think that they are just actually promoting and improving our country. They think they're doing kind of public service. So I just can't tell you how this particular time we're talking about Facebook, it really is another example I'm trying to get at and help us see our job as conservatives, as patriots, as people who love America, our job is to be more outspoken, more determined, more committed to standing up for America, because we're not just pushing back against the current Democrat candidate, the current elected official, the current, popular leftist who's got the microphone. We're pushing back against a long-running agenda to undermine love of America, spewing forth from the American left. And I want to tell you something. I'm going to turn and talk to talk about. I've been saying so much recently. We got to talk about standing up for America and standing to preserve America and protect it. I want to read something. I actually, my husband and I got together with Alan West and his wife and had a lovely time. Anyway, he shared something with me, and I want to just share. This is a great thing Alan West gave me recently, and I want to read. It's both sides of a really good card. It's about the idea of encouraging people to stand up for America. So this side, this is Roger Sherman, who is a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He wrote, "Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born from the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men." And this very prescient, very prophetic, this guy, Roger Sherman, signer of the Declaration, able to see, kind of talking about where we are today. We almost forgot. We are at the precipice of forgetting the idea that the freedoms we have, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the student at Florida State University who was getting voted out of office because he said, "I stand with my Catholic beliefs." The idea of people around this country silenced by the relentless anti-American Marxist left that is working its way through our political culture, diminishing, devaluing, delegitimizing the idea of America. And that is why we've got to be in this right now in this country, in this time, in 2020. We're the ones to stand up for this idea, to expose the radical hatred of the freedom of America that lives in the American left. Those young people who work at Facebook, they don't know any better. They think they're standing up for something good, but they're among the people, among the trained, the hypnotized, the manipulated, the mesmerized people in America who bought into what the leftist Marxist push is trying to do in this country, which is to take away our love of freedom, our respect for freedom. The other side of the card reads, and this is Dwight D. Eisenhower, "We must be ready to dare all for our country. For history does not long entrust the care of freedom to the weak and timid." We can't be weak. We can't be timid. We have to be strong in speaking up for this country, because where we are is a dangerous, dangerous time in this country. We have a Democrat presidential candidate, Biden, who I still say is not going to be the candidate, but this guy has the look of Mr. Apple Pie, Main Street American, he looks dignified, silver hair, and if he just never opened his mouth, you might think he had a clue what was going on. But you have that guy poised, ready to win the November 2020 election and to bring everything into place. Picture voting for him. You're really voting for AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. You're really voting for the radical left, because that's who owns the Democrat Party, that's who drives their agenda, that's who sets their policies, and that's who's going to be in charge in this country if we have Biden win this election. So where we are now in this election in 2020, the idea of our obligation, our duty to speak up for the idea of America, and the only person running for president this time who believes in the idea of America is Donald Trump. Our job is to get him reelected, to answer the concerns of people who say, well, I don't like his tweets. I don't like how he's spoken about women. I don't like this. I don't like that. And that, I'm never going to, there's no person on the planet Earth, no person on the planet Earth whose every word and every deed, every act in their entire life was perfect. No one. There's no one whose every word and deed I would defend without reservation. We're all imperfect humans. I'm just telling you, though, that Donald Trump is standing for the idea of America, and what the left would bring us through Biden is what the left would do to America if you elected AOC. We have a battle on our hands. It's not just Biden versus Trump. It is Marxist leftist takeover versus the freedom of America to continue as the beacon of liberty to this world. Those are our two choices in this 2020 election cycle. I want to, one last story I want to do today is about, I called it COVID truth. You know, we have coronavirus and COVID running around. And I'll tell you that we're at this time, I don't know if you know this, but like in my state, the great state of Texas, which usually is committed to liberty, but we have right now talk among some of the leaders in Texas about whether or not we have to revert again under coronavirus and because of COVID-19 numbers, that we're going to have to revert to some form of shelter in place. We had that original shelter in place order where everyone had to stay home except if you had to like have a reason to be in your car. You could be going to the grocery store, you could be going to the doctor, but that was pretty much it. And so we've kind of been slowly opening, but we're having more and more people talking about we may have to enter a new shutdown phase. Oh, coronavirus numbers are rising. And I want to address that. I want to really encourage you to not buy in to what is being pushed. Do not buy into the idea that there should be another shutdown, another shutting down this country or this state or the city or town where you live. Number one, it is not the job of government to keep you safe. Nothing gives the government the duty to keep you safe or the right to limit your freedom with the goal of keeping you safe. Government has many jobs. They certainly should be informing Americans of the nature of the coronavirus threat, the symptoms, what they are suggesting you do to take care of yourself, the frequent hand washing, all that kind of stuff. Information is one thing. Limiting your freedom is not their job. And where we are right now, because people see rising numbers, we're going to talk about it in a minute, we have people saying, well, maybe we're going to have to go back and limit our freedom again. So let me start with just one thing. I have a chart. There's been a lot of talk in this country about red state versus blue state and all sorts of aspects, but one is how we handle coronavirus. So I sent Matt the Wonderful a chart, and it's long. I don't know if he's going to be able to fit it in one screen here. We'll see. I'm going to first show you this chart, and then we'll talk. Oh, look at that beautiful thing. Now look, if you're watching this on Facebook, you ought to get a screen grab. I think it's in my weekly, in my show listings for today, but I can send you, if anyone who wants it, if you email me and you want this chart, I'll send it to you. Numbers come from CDC, Center for Disease Control. These numbers are talking about coronavirus deaths per 100,000 as of June 22nd, 2020. So it's taking every state, the states that have a Democrat governor or have a blue line, red line is Republican governor. So this is a chart showing you the number of deaths per 100,000 as of June 22nd. And there's a huge difference. And I want to point out some of the reasons there are differences. But one big fact to keep in mind is, although it is not absolute down to the dollar, down to the penny, but Democrat governors have been more willing and have engaged in bigger shutdowns, longer shutdowns, barely opening up their states. Republican governors, generally speaking, have been more willing to reopen their states. So you would think if reopening was dangerous, that therefore there'd be more deaths in the Republican-run states if reopening was a dangerous thing to do. However, here's a little reality check for you. Republican governors, so they're doing weighted average, size of your state, all of that. So, yeah, let's leave it up there for a second. Republican governors, on a weighted average, the death rate in their states is 22 people per 100,000 citizens. That is Republican governors. Democrat governors, weighted average, 49 deaths in their states per 100,000. So, the Democrat versus Republican stat is, in Democrat-run states, the death rate per 100,000 is twice the death rate. The states run by a Democrat, the death rate is twice that what it is in Republican-run states. You got to grasp that fact, because it's getting to the point where we're talking about, well, more shutdowns might have to happen. We have to shut down again. Republicans who are opening up are not experiencing the death rates as the Democrats are. Huge, huge thing to keep in mind. I am not saying that we just throw our hands up and don't care about coronavirus. I am saying we should continue research. We should continue prompting things that work, like hydroxychloroquine, which is working all over this country, even though at the federal level we have Fauci and others trying to shut it down. It's working to actually bring cure to people with COVID-19. But that's the first fact to keep in mind. You're better off statistically living in a red state with opening up faster than in a blue state where they're saying shut down in terms of surviving the coronavirus. The death rate in blue states over twice as high as the death rate in red states. Fact number 2, we talked with Kelly Ward yesterday on the show, and she talked about the problem in Yuma, Arizona. It's actually happening around this country. A lot of the numbers you're seeing with increased coronavirus cases, not talking about deaths now, just increased number of cases, is people coming over the border. We have people crossing the southern border, coming up from Mexico, who are contributing to the biggest surge in the virus cases. Those coming across the Mexican border are causing a surge in our coronavirus cases. It does not mean that because we have cases, the number of cases are rising, that we necessarily have a big failure in the part of our country in dealing with this situation. That's the next thing. And again, this article, brilliant article by the brilliant Daniel Horowitz on our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage, under shows, drop down list of links. You can read his article. The big surge in cases is coming from crossing the Mexican border. Next fact, even though we had massive panic over Tyson food plants, 95 and people testing positive, 95% of the coronavirus positive tests of people employed by Tyson Foods, 95% asymptomatic, meaning having no symptoms. Yes, they came in contact with the virus, so it's in their system. They're not sick. They're fine. But and the reason I'm running through all this is we're going to have a battle, I think, over the next weeks and months about the big government type people wanting to shut America down, and the freedom lovers saying, do not shut this country down again. I know President Trump said that even if we have another wave, we're not shutting down the government in the fall. We're not shutting down the country again in the fall. President Trump said that, but you're going to have pushback, and it's going to take the people, you and everyone you know, pushing back against your elected officials to say, don't force us to shut down. Don't shut us down. And I will say again, as I said many times talking about this case, if you fall in the category of vulnerable, especially if you have a pre-existing condition, some health condition that makes you particularly vulnerable, or if you're just really afraid and you always stay home during flu season, you always stay home when there's any threat of contagion, you should stay home. I'm not talking about forcing anyone out of their houses, but free people should not be limited by the government in this case with the coronavirus. But it's going to take a message, a strong message from the people to their elected officials saying, don't shut us down. I'll tell you another reason to push back against all the experts who keep talking about how we just simply have to look at these numbers, we have to shut down again, big danger coming. I'll just remind you some of the many, many ways in which the health authorities, alleged experts, the public health establishment, got things totally wrong under coronavirus. Number one, the threat level as of January 21st of this year, the day the first COVID virus case in America was confirmed, COVID-19 confirmed. You had all sorts of very, very alarming statements, one including out of Dr. Fauci, who said, obviously you have to take it seriously, do what CDC is saying, this is not, but he said, this is not a major threat to the people of the U.S. This is not something citizens of the U.S. should be worried about. That was Fauci on January, I'm talking about things that the experts got wrong. January 21st, Fauci goes, nothing to worry about here. But April 1st, CDC Director Robert Redfield saying this is the greatest public health crisis that has hit this nation in 100 years. Number two on things that people got wrong, masks. Still a battle today. We're back where I live, where you're supposed to wear a mask everywhere you go. On masks, you had on February 29th, Surgeon General Jerome Adams saying masks are not effective in preventing the general public from catching coronavirus. In fact, they're unhealthy. Don't wear masks. Bad, 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 bad. Now you have people saying, oh, no, they're good, 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 good. There is no settled science on the use of masks, and many experts stepping up to say, as a matter of fact, a healthy person forced to wear a mask in public is contributing to their own health problem. They are breathing in and out the stuff your body is exhaling, should be exhaling. Your body's cleaning its system out endlessly through the circulation system and breathing. You're breathing back in what your body's trying to remove. You're making yourself more vulnerable. You're breathing back in the stuff your body is trying to get rid of. Absolutely unnecessary. We also had major errors by people in public health with respect to the danger of asymptomatic transmission. With people with no symptoms, can you transmit it? You cannot transmit it. Back and forth, public health people going all over the place. Mortality rate. World Health Organization first said the mortality rate was likely to be 3.4 or more higher than the seasonal flu. And actually, the CDC recently put its best guess figure at 0.26%. But we still have public health people responding with massive shutdowns because of bad numbers. Death toll models, we've been over that before. We had the ridiculous models out of Dr. Neil Ferguson from England, ridiculous models from authorities here in America. Totally wrong, nothing close, but those death models drove policy, drove shutdown, drove fear, and drove the tyrannical rise of little tyrants around this country dictating to people where they can go and what they can do. We also had a massive, just dishonest use of the death certificates, and the cause of death listed finally got exposed because doctors around the country were pointing out the CDC was saying, hey, you know what? If someone had a pre-existing condition, a fatal condition, and they contracted COVID-19, use COVID-19 on the death certificate, even though the doctor was saying, well, that's not really what they died of. Yeah, they came in contact with that, but they died of their pre-existing whatever problem was. So you had them lying about that. You had the ventilators, the whole notion of ventilator shortage and using ventilators, and now more and more doctors saying they actually cause more death in hospitals. The ventilators that were put on people who shouldn't have had them because their lungs were too weakened. We had a big fuss about surface spread, how the virus is living everywhere, you can't touch anything. And then they said, actually, we've discovered the virus can't really survive on all these surfaces. We said they did, so you don't need to worry about the surface spread. So I could read the rest of them, but I want to get to this point. I am not, I'm going to get the last two. Hydroxychloroquine. We have doctors around this country, doctors have been on my show saying, we are finding hydroxychloroquine extremely efficient in bringing cure to people who have COVID-19. They have case studies, they have stories, they're trying to go in the media and talk about it, and yet you have Washington still trying to shut down the valuing of hydroxychloroquine, the spreading of hydroxychloroquine availability. It is a drug whose patent has lapsed, so it's inexpensive to produce, highly effective. We've had shows. This show, if you weren't watching, you can go back and find it on our YouTube channel. Dr. Robin Armstrong of Houston, Dr. Yvette Lozano. People have been talking about hydroxychloroquine. Doctors using it say it works, but somehow you can't get the pro-vaccine motivated Dr. Fauci to be honest about hydroxychloroquine. So I'm going to wrap up by saying this. This is the point of this segment of my show is not to pile on public health officials. It really is not. I am grateful that people commit their lives to public health. I'm grateful for people who want to research and want to help the American people understand the health situation, who want the American people to get the latest facts, the latest research, who care about the health of America. There's a noble concept of public health officials. But in our country, the public health officials have turned from being helpful in order to share information to the feeder, the sustainer of the tyrannical actions taken by mayors, city council members, governors around this country. The public health officials have become not just sources of information, but sources of justification for shutting down America. We cannot let it happen again. You know, people, I get all sorts of solicitations for guests to come on my show. You know, people who say I have an expert, you know, and so I'm getting them now from economists saying America isn't even close to ready to deal with the long-term impact of the first shutdown we did of this country, that the economic impact coming to our country is still coming. We even though we're trying to reopen slowly, we haven't begun to counter the impact that these shutdowns going to have. And so they're saying, let me come on your show and talk about how bad it's going to be and what we have to do. Yeah, and I'm not there yet. I don't want to surrender that, but the American people have got to push back and say, we are, number one, we're not here to be ruled. We're here to be free people. We'll take your information and we'll decide whether we're going to continue functioning as a free people, whether we need to stay home because we're concerned. But we cannot continue to have a country that we have literally thousands of little tyrants around this country giving people fines for sitting in their car on Easter Sunday in a church parking lot and listening to a speech on the radio, to a sermon on the radio. We can't have those kind of people more emboldened. They play right into the Marxist determination to take away the spirit of the freedom of the American people. And the only way to fight that is for the American people to stand up, push back against their elected officials who want to try to take away our freedom and justified by keeping us safe. It's not their job. Their job is to protect the freedom of the American people. I always wrap up the show. I think I went a little bit long, but I always wrap up the show by telling you why the stories we talked about today matter to you. And so on today's stories, we started with cultural Marxism and speech. Florida State University student Senate President removed 4 comments to his Catholic friends regarding factual ways the Black Lives Matter public agenda violates Catholic teaching, abortion, transgenderism. And he was replaced by a Palestinian student who proclaims Israel is like Nazi Germany. Cultural Marxists do not have a better idea. They're not promoting a more perfect union. They're sowing division and hatred according to their godless view of the world. And innocent students and Americans are manipulated by these Marxists. How many more examples will it take to wake up American patriots en masse? Principled pushback is possible and essential. American patriots must rise up. As to Facebook and MAGA is terrorism, Project Veritas videos exposed Facebook moderators. When that one woman, saw a photo of a person with a MAGA hat, she will block it as terrorism. That's what she said. These people are serious. They have paid jobs at Facebook. These people have been educated to believe that love of America equates to terrorism. The price of false teaching and indoctrination that has festered for decades on American campuses is becoming clear, and the bill is coming due. The American people must rise and reverse this. It's a generational task. It will not be corrected in one election. And finally, COVID truth, numbers in the economy. So much has been learned, but is not changing the policy in response to the virus. COVID is not nearly as lethal as feared, is not the plague. No scientific evidence that shelter in place has helped anything. New cases now are overwhelmingly of the wild variety, often asymptomatic. Isolated geographic instances of ICU strain, which is true, does happen, is not indicative of a system-wide problem. Yet elected officials are in love with their nanny state dictatorial powers. Americans must insist on a return to trusting freedom and free people as the remedy. Government provides information and guidance. Americans decide how to take care of themselves and their families, friends, and neighbors. And that, my very fine friends, is America Can We Talk for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time to America Can We Talk, where I always talk truth about America because America matters. And I'll talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.
Can you